In our last video, we spoke with small landlords about how the eviction moratorium has hurt them. But tenants and advocates spoke to many reasons why the moratoriums are necessary. First of all, we're in a pandemic.
The CDC is responsible for public health all across the country. And there's been a lot of evidence that if people are homeless, then COVID is going to spread. If you're on the street, if you're doubling up with another family, if you're sleeping on the subway, if you're entering a crowded emergency room or a homeless shelter, you can't socially distance and you're going to get COVID.
Keeping in mind that an eviction doesn't just involve the removal from the home, but it involves a lot of traveling throughout the city associated with that. And all of those things increase the interactions and thereby increase the potential spread of the disease.
A study found that before the CDC announced the federal moratorium, states that lifted eviction moratoriums saw a significant rise in COVID cases and deaths. Nationally, the results found over 430,000 excess cases and 10,700 excess deaths associated with moratoriums being lifted.
The study kind of looks at that. We saw the different states getting rid of their moratoriums over the summer, and at that time there was no CDC moratorium. So we had this sort of scenario of states with no protection at all. And we really saw that COVID rates had this big uptick, cases and deaths.
Second, the ongoing pandemic has many tenants struggling to make enough to pay the rent. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, 1 in 6 renters are behind on rent payments, and 1 in 5 renters living with children are behind on rent.
I believe that every person deserves the right to know where they're going to sleep at night. Evictions are violent and disruptive, and they follow you for the rest of your life. The state moratorium is truly like saving people's lives. I don't know where we would without it.
Third, advocates argued that keeping people housed has a major impact on their futures.
We're learning more and more every year about the long-term impacts that an eviction has, and not just during the period of eviction, but really forever. It's a traumatizing life event. And so it affects your ability to have a stable life as an adult.
Housing insecurity during the pandemic is associated with mental health, mental distress, food insecurity. A bunch of other health outcomes are impacted just based on whether or not you feel secure in your home during the pandemic. So whatever we can do to prevent evictions right now, I think can have a lasting impact on long-term health outcomes beyond just COVID.
Still, advocates acknowledge that landlords shouldn't just provide free housing themselves.
And we're not asking landlords to shoulder the cost of this burden forever, right? We want landlords to be paid back for the rents that they were unable to recoup. But we just don't think that the place to get that money is off the backs of tenants who are unemployed and don't have it. So it's a long-term debt crisis that needs to be solved with ways that are not eviction.